Hi friends, I'm Cheryl. Welcome to my channel. So I got a new stick today. It's a stabilizer, so it's supposed to make the video better when I'm out walking. It has something called a gimbal in it, which seems to have a mind of its own. And so I thought I would test it out. And so I'm out walking in the park, and I wanted to talk about insecurity. So yesterday I did the meditation on insecurity. And if you watched it, thank you. I hope that you found it helpful. And of course, it is something that you can watch multiple times. But today, what I just wanted to talk about is it's the summer solstice and the longest day of the year. For me, this has shown up as a day that had a little bit of anxiety. And it was like there was too much time. The longest day of the year means there's a lot of day, right? I was tired to start with, and the combination of being tired and it being such a long day and the energy of the day being really strong for me. I did a reading earlier today on the Sensual Healing channel, and the energy of the day was shadow and light, kind of really asking you to look deep inside and know that you have this light that's really very prominent in you. But the shadows of uncertainty and the unknown and all the other things that came up can create anxiety and other triggering events. So it made me stop and think, and I thought, well, okay, so that's how, for me, insecurity showed up today. It showed up in the way of being anxious, feeling extremely tired, and not necessarily feeling triggered, but the anxiety was such that I didn't want to think. I was doing my best to not think because I didn't want to overthink. So I didn't want the anxiety to turn into a trigger, but I could feel the anxiety. And for me, I could feel the anxiety in my body. Okay, so I could feel it up here in a tightness, and I could feel it in my solar plexus. Like there was a gut reaction to feeling this anxiety. And so I wanted to come on and invite you to think about, how does your insecurity show up? How does it show up, and where do you feel it in your body? Is it something that shows up for you as anxiety, or does it show up for you as something else? Does it show up for you in tears? Does it show up for you as anger? And can you always figure out where that anxiety or that insecurity, can you always feel where that insecurity is coming from? For me, it didn't take very much to figure it out, because I had been thinking about the summer solstice so much today. So it was on my mind, even as I was doing the reading today and I was working. I was like, oh, it's the solstice, and I could feel this restless energy. Now, there was one other thing, another question for you. Are there things that trigger your insecurity besides the normal kinds of triggers that you might have just as a course of healing? So for me, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning and I could not go back to sleep. So that triggered my insecurity this afternoon, because I knew I was tired. And I started thinking about how tired I was, how I was like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the energy to get up and do something. And I didn't want to go to sleep because I was convinced that if I went to sleep at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening, that I would wake up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and this would become a really bad pattern to get into where I'm tired every afternoon. So once again, tell me, what are some of the issues you see there? Well, I'm not being present. I'm anticipating problems. So I'm not allowing myself to rest because I don't want to sleep. So that creates anxiety, right? Now, I'm mentioning that this is related to insecurity, but I'm talking more about anxiety and how this is showing up. So how do I know it has to do with insecurity? And for me, I'm very in tune with what's going on. And if you've been on this journey for a while, no matter how far you are on the journey, there's a certain amount of recognizing the things that you already know. So I recognize that I have insecurity about doing things right. And today, I kept feeling like, what's the right thing to do? What's the right way to handle waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning? So I started my day off in this place of, I don't quite know what's the right thing. I want to share one other thing that really does impact all of this. It's okay to keep changing direction. This past Saturday, I started a kind of therapy that's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And this was very powerful. And it's based on the premise that bilateral stimulation, bilateral meaning it goes between both sides of your brain, bilateral stimulation of the brain can help heal the brain by firing up neurons, creating pathways, and it can help heal trauma. It was my first time having EMDR, but the trauma is something that I've known about and have healed in the last years, 4, 5, 6, it's been a process over time, but mostly in the last 4 or 5 years. And this is an area of my life that I do feel I've healed. Now, what's the difference between something that you feel like you've healed and something that is still needing to be healed? Okay, so for me, and recognize always, I'm giving you my examples, but you could be different. And hopefully what this does is it just helps you to think about how this is for you. For me, I have done a lot of work of digging into this trauma. It's been a real layering process. It's come up, and the initial healing, I would say, was the recognition of this event. And then over time, it would come up again, and I would say, oh, this is coming up again. So I would recognize, okay, there's a new layer. It's like you're never quite ready to go all the way, dig deep in the beginning. Even if you're really working hard, it's very challenging to get to some of those depths. I also knew how this wound was triggering me in my life. I knew that it had created a feeling of not being loved. And so if I was seeing myself, that's just one example, not being loved. If I was seeing myself in my relationships getting hurt because I felt like somebody didn't care, that was generally, if that was increasing, that was an indicator that maybe this is something that's coming up again. And I needed to go back in. I needed to look at it harder. I needed to talk to that little girl and allow the work to happen. So what EMDR does, from what I understand, by firing up these neurons through this bilateral stimulation, is, well, let me just talk about what I've observed since Saturday. I would say that the session on Saturday was one of the most intense experiences of my life. And I gave myself a whole day of nothing but being in my safe space. And my safe space is the water. So after the appointment, I went to the water. I noticed a huge purging on Saturday night. Did not immediately associate it with the EMDR, but looking back, that made sense. My body was just releasing. I have found myself more in a place of calm and more observer. I've had a couple of things that come up, and I might react to them. And it's like I react and my brain says, okay, you got it, right? And then the emotion goes away. So it's like I am still able to feel, but I feel it and then it's gone. I feel it, I process it, I observe, and I release. What happened this evening and today really felt no different. I felt this sense of anxiety, but I never got like full-blown trigger kind of energy. I was just like, okay, what is the right thing for me to do? And in the end, I did nothing. I just sat for an hour and did nothing. That was very relaxing. My brain needed to do nothing. I didn't try to think about anything. I didn't try to process the EMDR anymore. I didn't try to, nothing. And now I'm out for a walk. So I'm getting air, fresh air and grounding, and I feel really good, really good. So tonight, this video is really about inviting you to take some time over the next couple of days, and maybe through another meditation, but take some time to think about how how insecurity shows up for you. Where is it in your body? Is there something special that triggers it? Is the trigger related to the event that you might have explored in your meditation? Or is there something else? Or is it just isolated? Because sometimes these things are just, it's an insecurity about something in that moment, right? So that's what I have tonight. I hope it helps. I'm curious about how you felt the video looks with the stabilizer. And I'm sending you so much love. Bye for now.